So we're going to do something a little bit differently for this video. We are going to be moving into something experiential and experimental. This video is going to cover this Jamais Vu experience that people report often. And Jamais Vu is basically like the opposite of Deja Vu. It is when something that is familiar or known begins to feel unfamiliar. And so I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit just to kind of break this down for you. It's basically where a situation or place can start to feel completely new or unfamiliar. There are other causes of Jamais Vu. For instance, a lack of sleep or mental exhaustion can cause it. There are neurological factors such as a temporal lobe dysfunction or abnormalities in the temporal lobe. Certain medical conditions such as epilepsy and migraines can also cause a Jamais Vu. There's also certain psychological factors that have been known to induce it. That would look like anxiety and depression if there's an acute intensity in that. You might start to feel a sense of something new where otherwise you would see it as familiar. And also hypnosis has been known to induce a sense of Jamais Vu. For this video, we are actually going to see if we can induce the experience of Jamais Vu. And there's actually a way to do this. There was a paper released fairly recently that was a study on inducing Jamais Vu, and what they discovered is about 70% of the participants that took part experienced a pretty profound sense of Jamais Vu. Here in this experiment, this is how it's going to go. We're first going to see if we can induce Jamais Vu, and then we are going to move into inquiry. And that way, we're going to see if we can turn awareness in on itself. And while this may be novel and maybe superficial in some ways, it could actually provide itself to be a powerful tool in some of this inquiry exploration. And so maybe you're willing to give it a shot. Few other things. If you are someone who has experienced DPDR or severe disassociation, or you have any other sort of psychological or neurological abnormalities, you might want to sit this one out, because we don't want to induce anything that creates a deep sense of discomfort or otherwise suffering. So we can go ahead and move forward on that. So it's generally noted that Jamais Vu is generally safe, but if it's something that you experience on a regular basis, there could be a neurological component there, so you might actually want to get checked out by a healthcare provider. We don't obviously want to trigger something that makes something worse for any of you. So if you feel like you're willing and ready to get into this, here's how we're going to set up this experiment. Essentially, you want to find an environment very similar to where you would go for meditation, except maybe the lights are up a little bit more. You need two things: pen, pencil, some sort of writing utensil, and a piece of lined paper. In fact, actually get 3 pieces of lined paper. It will make it a lot more controlled as we do this experiment. And essentially what you're going to do is I'm going to give you a prompt of some words. And the methodology here is that you're going to sit and you're going to write the word over and over and over as fast as you possibly can. And there are 2 stopping points. The first stopping point is if you reach about a minute, you'll go ahead and stop, and then you'll move into some self-inquiry. The other stopping place is when you start to feel a sense of unfamiliarity with the word, which seems to be pretty common. Then you will stop and immediately move into some inquiry. So it'll look kind of like this. The first word in the first piece of paper or section of paper you want to start to write is the word THE, the. And you want to write that word over and over and over as fast as you possibly can within that span of time. And as soon as that word starts to feel different or something starts to feel different, go ahead and stop writing and then immediately move into some inquiry. Who am I? What am I? And sit with that experience for at least 5 minutes. And then if you haven't experienced anything within that particular time frame, you'll move on to the second piece. You can also move on to the second piece of the experiment if even you have had some sense of awareness turning toward itself. And the second word is the word hand, HAND. And it's the same exact methodology without having any of the writing of the word before on a new piece of paper or a new section where you cannot see what was written previously. Begin to write the word hand over and over and over as fast as you possibly can within that span of time. If a minute passes, stop, close your eyes, move into some self-inquiry. Once the word starts to feel unfamiliar, go ahead and stop writing, close your eyes, move into some self-inquiry. Who am I? What am I? And sit with that experience for a bit. For about 5 minutes. And then finally, the last one on a new piece of paper or a new section where you cannot see anything written previously. The word is D-O-O-R, door. And you want to write that word, same exact methodology, over and over and over as quickly as you possibly can until it starts to either feel unfamiliar or about a minute has passed, and then step into some inquiry. Who am I? What am I? And rest with that for at least 5 minutes. If you start to experience it immediately or right away and you step into inquiry and that seems to be providing something for you, then there's no need to move on to the next rounds. Most people, by the time they get to the third round, will start to experience some sense of jamais vu. And in that, same kind of thing, if the inquiry starts to become more interesting and you're not quite able to find yourself as awareness turns in on itself, then sit with that for a while. This is kind of a novel approach and something, as mentioned before, much more experimental and experiential, although there is a sense that this could enrich in some aspects of self-inquiry. What we're essentially doing here is, by inducing jamais vu, is giving us a sense of disorientation and thereby possibly giving us a little bit of a glimpse on what seems to be happening within this mechanism that we call the identity. If you have some profound experience or you have some comments or questions, or you would just like to begin some dialogue, please leave that in the comments below, and it's kind of exciting to see where this takes you. So let us know how it goes.